Hello and welcome to the Daily Brown Bag. Today we're going to be talking about SEO guarantees. I'm Chad Hill and I'm joined by Adam Stetzer.
Yeah, good morning, Chad, and welcome to the Brown Bag. We're talking today about a Forbes article in December that really caught our attention, Chad, and this is a theme that we've hit over the years over and over again, but I don't think it can be overstated. The title of this article is Why the Best SEO Firms Don't Offer Guaranteed Results. And I know this is something, Chad, in our SEO reseller community and on our forum and our discussions with our customers. I hear it occasionally in our 4 p.m. Q&A session and the live teleconference. They're saying, hey, I can go get this guarantee from someone else. Why don't you guys have it? And we consistently say, no, really, you don't want to be talking to firms who offer a guarantee. And it's nice to see an article like the one we've found here in Forbes that backs that up. And here's some of the points that they were making, and the author specifically talks about business in a digital marketing space. He owns a digital marketing firm, and he outlines what he's been telling his clients, which is similar to what we've been telling our clients, and that is specifically there just simply are no guarantees in the SEO industry. And again, this is coming from Forbes, Chad. Any firm that tells you otherwise is feeding you a line, and I know we agree with that 100%. I mean, as most of you know, there are risks involved with SEO. It's a risky business, and because of that, many small businesses are a little hesitant to get involved and to wade into these waters. Their marketing budgets are already tight, and they're worried they won't see a return on the investment. Although on the other side, they also have heard there's a great return from SEO when you can get it right and really nail it. But it's difficult to keep up with the ever-changing rules and guidelines from Google. I know we've been covering this for years. The guidelines, we've been through them line by line, both in this Brown Bag forum as well as in webinars with our resellers, as well as in discussions. And some of them are just downright gray and hard to follow, and they get updated over and over again. So I think this is a really interesting concept, Chad, because this idea of risk-reward is around in lots and lots of industries. The one that comes to mind, of course, most readily is the financial industry. When you go in and talk to an investment broker and say, hey, I really want something that's very low risk but will bring me great rewards very quickly, of course, any financial advisor is going to say that's just not how it works. There's generally this continuum that the less risk you take, the slow and steady wins the race, but if you want to go for big returns, you have to take on higher risk. And so they advise clients, and I think we do kind of the same. Say if you want to use PPC, that's a much more, quote, guaranteed, although it doesn't always work 100% how you want it, but a much lower risk marketing approach versus SEO has a lot higher risk, but can then therefore have much higher returns. So I think helping clients understand this is really key to being a solid citizen, and it's the reason we don't offer guarantees, of course, because there's a million reasons why things may not work. But I think in my mind, Chad, transparency is really key here, that you're giving them all the options and helping them make an informed decision rather than giving them some phony guarantee.
Yeah, Adam, and just to clarify, when you talk about risk, I think you said this, but just so people understand, risky, what we're really talking about there is that you don't know for certain that any SEO company doesn't control Google and their algorithm, and therefore, what we're saying is that the effort that goes into it, it's a little less certain that it's definitely going to have the output. Whereas for example, with AdWords, as you mentioned, Adam, that if you spend $1 in AdWords, or usually now $10 in AdWords, you may get a couple clicks, and you can see that happened right at the point that you paid the $10. So that's the difference here. But we wanted to go back and also look at what are some of the what other people have talked about in terms of guarantees. And so we found a good reference from 2008 where Rand Fishkin talked about some of the reasons that guarantees don't make sense and that why you should really run away from them. And his 5 points were, one, that rankings are inherently unstable. And this again goes into the fact that it's Google, they control the algorithm, and really an SEO company guaranteeing that they know what Google's going to do, it's just not possible. It doesn't make sense. Number two, they aren't the only metric that really equates with performance. We just covered a survey yesterday where people talked about, where small businesses said the number one thing for them were phone calls. So rankings don't equal phone calls, and we saw this a lot several years ago. I think people have gotten a little bit smart to this, but people would go after these completely useless keywords that had no search volume, so they had rankings, but they didn't have any traffic, they didn't have any phone calls, so that didn't really make sense. It's a guarantee that doesn't really help you in some ways. Number three, again, these guarantees, they really do equate in many cases with kind of more spammy companies that were doing things that weren't as good for the business, and so guarantees sort of immediately take you there. The next one, though, is probably the first one we should have mentioned, which is that Google has specifically said that you should move away from when you're picking an SEO company, anyone who guarantees, this should be a red flag for choosing an SEO firm. So again, if you're guaranteeing at least rankings, then you of course are falling right into where Google's saying, be careful of that. The number 5 one, then there's kind of ethical issues with guaranteeing something you don't control. So there are companies that still are guaranteeing out there, but you have to look at what they're guaranteeing. They will often talk about they're guaranteeing work completed, which isn't within their control and makes a lot of sense. Sometimes they're guaranteeing satisfaction. That one gets a little bit gray, but you have to really look at that. So I think all of those 5 reasons we talked about from 2008 still hold up today. Really, SEO is the main thing here. SEO is a long-term strategy, and it has moved from where it was several years ago to really being a part of good marketing. It's now a lot more related to PR. It's related to building your brand, and so all the things you're doing for SEO also have related benefits to other parts of your business. So again, watch out for those guarantees. They're still out there, fewer and far between, I'd say, but you really, when you're looking at and comparing a company that guarantees rankings to one that doesn't, just realize it's not really a completely fair comparison.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Jed. Even if you don't buy the business reason or the ethics behind it, that point you made about Google outright saying you just can't do this, or you run the risk of getting a smack or a penalty from them, should convince you. But I think overwhelmingly, the case is here. This is just a shady practice, and for those agencies that we talk to every day, it's just not how you want to sell your product. You want to feel good about what you're doing. And the last point I'll make, Chad, is, and I've said this many, many times, I say it in the 4 p.m. Q&A session all the time. If you're dealing with a client who's just moving into digital marketing for the first time, this whole topic is going to be very confusing to them. Just like someone who is just approaching the stock market for the very first time, you would never recommend a risky penny stock. So put them in something that they can understand that's simple. Start with PPC and get their feet wet with something that's a fairly simple transaction, and then over time graduate them up to SEO, which is more complex, has a higher possible return, but also carries these other risks we've been talking about. It's just a great way to ease them in. And in the long term, and our survey results show this, all of them show this, SEO is a great place to be. There continues to be very high demand, it continues to grow, and it has an awesome return on investment, but it's complex, and you got to understand it. So our answer to that is be honest and truthful about that. Be transparent, and don't make these phony guarantees. Well, that's our brown bag for this morning. We appreciate you joining us, and we ask that you subscribe. We'll see you back here tomorrow.